What is up, Generals? It's Fiasco, and we're back with Ultimate General Civil War, the JNP rebalance mod, and we're taking another shot at Malvern Hill. So, I'm not going to do a camp screen. You guys have seen the army. I talked about it before the first video. One of the kind of important things to do is to step back and kind of realize when you've been wrong about something. So I was mad at myself and mad at what I thought was the game when it comes to the behavior of the artillery on the left flank in the first version of Malvern Hill. And I went back and I watched it, and Panda Crowd had found a moment when I clicked for those two cannon at a target that I probably thought was in range for them and realized it wasn't. And so they moved, according to my order. And I had seen that behavior from skirmishers in the past, so I'd assumed the cannon must be doing it. And I just, in the heat of the moment or whatever, I didn't realize I'd clicked them to do something. So, anywho, I talked with in the comment section for the first Malvern Hill video. Panda Kraut and Something Compass both talked about attempting the far left strategy and abandoning it for many of the reasons that we ran into in the first episode, which is to say, terrible lines of sight. The far left position is elevated down, so it's down from it's lower than the Malvern Hill position, and there's not really any good cover or approachable positions in the northern position. So for a number of reasons, I thought, why don't we go ahead and give Malvern Hill another shot? So what we're going to do now is the first method of, this is quick. I've accelerated this to 250 times playback speed. And partially that's because you guys have already watched me play Malvern Hill. And so the intention here is, why don't we go ahead and try it again, and you guys can kind of watch and see the broad strokes of the battle, but there's not a great need to kind of play it at a slower clip because you kind of know the scope of the tactical problem. The Union force here is more or less the same as the one that I faced in the last attempt at this battle. But the difference now is less going to be in what the AI does and more about what I do. So in the initial methodology or envisionment of operations, I'd said, okay, why don't we go ahead and sandwich the Union between two Confederate corps? And the new conceptualization of the battle was going to be, why don't we go ahead and try and get both corps to fight together? And what that was going to be, we're going to get the snipers and the counter battery units. So I separated off counter battery and infantry support artillery. And the counter battery units were going to go on this copse up to the right where the snipers currently are. And I think Panda did something very similar in his video. And I know I had initially dismissed deploying up there because I say, oh, there's a whole bunch of artillery. And there is a lot of artillery. But what I'm starting to think about is, well, hey, wait a second. Snipers had a particularly egregiously long range in the vanilla game at like 500, 600. And here their range is like 600 or 700. And the muskets are range 400. So it's possible that they can shoot across the river. What that might mean is that some of these lesser units can provide supporting fires and make holding that copse of woods that's the right anchor of the Union line, where there's currently 3 brigades and they're on a recon point. It might make holding that for them kind of untenable. And we could finally have that thing that I keep on not being sure about with this battle. And that's the safe way to approach the battle, or safe way to approach the opponent's position. So, and then the next thing is, why don't we get the two corps to fight together? So I Corps is still deployed second. I Corps is still deploying in a supporting move, in a sort of supporting manner, where I Corps is going to have two corps back, so to speak. And all of the infantry support artillery moves to support, I corps or two corps attack and that kind of deal. The infantry still come around and wing from the far right, and all that kind of stuff. And basically now I just totally ignore the left of the battlefield until I'm pushing the Union downhill. And I'll be honest, this works out way better than I expected. I initially kind of written off attacking from this direction before because I was afraid that, there's all that artillery and there's not really a good way to attack or approach or whatever. And that's still mostly true, but there's a couple things, subtle things, that have changed my mental math from the vanilla game. And the one is that my snipers can shoot their artillery from the woods, and the second is that I can provide supporting infantry fire from my side of the river. And not get blasted to smithereens by artillery in the process. So we move the 2 militia units up, and their job is basically to eat casualties in this battle, and be cheap to replace. And they do a good job at both of those things. And they're also supposed to body block for artillery, and they also do that. We move up with the infantry support artillery, and I'm very careful about how I have them target now, and there's still some interesting targeting behavior. Take a look at watch the behavior from the counter battery units. So 10th artillery, 2nd artillery, and I can't see the number of the other one, but it looks like 3rd maybe. I've had them target a unit on the other side of the river, and so they're trying to move, I think, to get at it or something. What's interesting though is that once I tell them to unpack, they don't seem to have an issue with firing across the river. It's just while they're still limbered. They seem to have an issue with what I've asked them to target. But once they unpack, they're kind of like, oh yeah, I can shoot that far, no problem. I don't know kind of what feeds that, but I find it interesting. So I've got 2 Parrot units and a James, maybe? I forget. It's the same counter battery package as I had in the last video. And 1 second. Mark. It's the same counter battery package as I had in the last video. So I forget what that other unit is. It's not 10 pounders. I put all the 10 pounders in the infantry support position. We get one early gift, and this is sort of a weird thing. When the camera expands at this new second phase of the battle as Second Corps arrives, there's a change in the behavior of the Union. I think it's because they get more units, or there's more screen space, or I couldn't tell you what changes, but whatever. And then I think, and I don't know if I can, you'd think like I'm recording audio afterwards, I'd go back, but it's actually kind of a pain to do it. So I don't know. I don't think there was an artillery unit there where Carly is right now, that 400-man arty unit that I'm currently musketeering into the ground. I could have sworn they weren't there before the map expanded, and all of a sudden, boom, there they are, right up in my grill. But this works out okay because they're also right up in musket range, and I just go ahead and blast them with artillery, and it's no big deal. So I-Corps comes in, and we go ahead and it's the same. That part of their plan is the same as it was in the last battle. The difference is that I don't bring the artillery to the flank attack with I-Corps. I bring all of it. I send all of it to go support 2 Corps. With the thought process that a concentrated artillery park like that can really have an outsized impact on the Union line. In retrospect, I think it would have been good to send a battery with I-Corps and then have the remainder do like I did in the actual event and have them support 2 Corps. I also deploy 1 reinforced division from I-Corps to the extreme Confederate right to support some units from 2 Corps in an eventual attack on the Union left, which is right now not being threatened at all. So the battery's not Carly, it's Getty, my bad. I've got my snipers, I've got my counter battery units, I've got the supply cart over there all doing their thing, and what I'm noticing here in terms of the flow of the battle is an infantry unit of some kind or another continues to move to occupy the fence line, where that recon point is on the Union right, and they get blasted to smithereens thanks to the 24 pounders and the Napoleons, and they run away, and then someone else goes up, and part of me wants to seize on the aggression up until this point and move infantry up, but they keep on obliging me by walking some unit up there and just letting me pound the crap out of it. And I feel like I can't stop them from doing that. So once the momentum of that kind of shifts and it's clear that the Union's given that ground because Keyes runs away and these other two brigades run away, I move up pretty heavily with a lot of units to occupy that recon point and that copse of trees, because this is going to be the linchpin. Like these two forested blocks or blobs of trees or whatever, and then the weed or corn or whatever field it is in between there, that's the green field. That's going to be the base upon which I launch my attack and the base upon which I attack the Union position. And then I'm going to advance to the farm line, and then I'm going to, it's going to be in phases, right? So there's two, I think, reasons that this iteration of the battle goes so much better than the other one. There's three, actually. So the first reason is good lines of sight and good recon. In my first iteration of Malvern Hill, I was giving up an awful lot of informational awareness by a lack of reconnaissance to the Union position and bad lines of sight because I was below them. So in this game, it really does reward you for the high ground. And while on paper, enveloping the Union position was a great concept, there may be something there. I'm not prepared to write it off yet conceptually, but this does work better even if this step of it right now is a bit messy. So we have transitioned into what I will call opening steps of the general engagement right now, and it's messy as hell because we're in knife fight range and both armies are at full strength. And it's a question of who can grind it out more and who can do more damage faster. And I have more better artillery, so the answer is me. But some units in particular right now, the militia units, get mauled in the process. And the unfortunate reality is that's why they're here. So it is sort of what it is. So anyway, information. I have much, much better information in this variation of the battle than I did in the first go-around. I've got my troops on recon points. I've just got elevated positions. I have better lines of sight. There's a lot of reasons why I have better information in this particular iteration of the battle, but this is basically it, right? Like I've got great lines of sight now. I've got covered positions to fight from. My artillery is starting to really reap a toll on the Union position, and I am not unaware of the fact that some of my units are taking a beating right now, especially 33rd and 34th militia, and then the other units and all that kind of stuff, because they're just right there in the teeth of it, and they're eating canister, and yeah, they're in cover, yeah, they're in woods, okay, but they're not really able to expect that I'm going to be able to blunt that damage much. I have, however, the counter battery mission, thanks to the snipers, has been massively successful. And that's the next part of it. Great artillery cover that works together. The infantry support artillery does a wonderful job pushing the Union back constantly, or making it dangerous for the Union to be in musket range of me. My canister is great. The 6-pounders really continue to just pull their weight again and again. 24-pounders are also devastating. And the Napoleon actually gets some great work here. So the counter battery artillery does wonderful work, declawing or defanging the Union army at range, and the infantry support artillery does exceptional work pulling the teeth out of the Union infantry. So in both regards, the Union is struggling beyond this phase right here to do, I think, meaningful damage to my troops. And once we kick them off this fence line and destroy those 2 batteries of artillery, at that point, from there on out, there's not really a lot of devastating firepower that they're able to put into me. Don't get me wrong, I still take plenty of casualties, but the loss ratio is quite a bit better than it was in the initial iteration of Malvern Hill. I don't lose 2 units, as an example, of artillery. We don't have the insane officer casualty rates that we did have in the last battle. We do still have plenty. Again, plenty of wounded, all that kind of thing. But it was nuts coming out of the other version of Malvern Hill. So we knock out that second battery of artillery, and now we consolidate and formalize our line and get our artillery kind of pushed up. So the information, I talked about that as one of the reasons I think that this went really much better than the last iteration. So what's the second part? I was much more meticulous in my movements. So not Panic Route, although also Panic Route, but Something Compass, I think, has made a brand, or is, in my mind, famous, internet famous, obviously, as one of the more organized and meticulous players of this game. I have skimmed some of his work vis-a-vis a Skyrim mod, because I like the guy and I want to see the rest of his channel. I honestly, I didn't get very into modding Skyrim, but it looks cool. It looks like it's basically a whole new game. And from what little I've watched, it appears that he has brought his analytical and methodical mindset to that game as well. So SC does a wonderful job of resting or moving carefully with his dudes and supporting them with artillery and then also supply wagons. And, you know, one of the things that struck me about me watching myself in the last time of Malvern Hill is once it became apparent to me as a player that the plan wasn't going to work the way that I wanted it to or the way that I envisioned it, I started to cast about looking for a hole, looking for another version of success, or looking to salvage that plan. And I'm not talking about the battle here, sorry. So having secured our one pivot point or our one anchor and plenty of artillery to blast with it, we now begin the simultaneously second and third parts of the general attack. So you'll notice that there's, now that my center's been anchored, I've got a large thrust coming from the extreme Confederate right into their position in the north, where they do have plenty of concentration, and I do acknowledge that that is attacking into a covered position. But I'm flanking that position, and I've got lots of artillery firing obliquely into it. I now also realize that most of my counter battery artillery is now woefully out of position because we've successfully destroyed, or at least forced to shift out of position, the Union artillery in that portion of the battlefield. We're also crossing the river with I Corps. So we're pressing the attack on both the left and right flank, with the center as our pivot point in both cases, because the artillery is able to really utilize that strength or weight of fire to continually just blast away the front line or the closest facing edge of the Union Army. I'm being very careful about targeting. I'm being very careful about making sure the artillery is being gently nudged forward all the time, and that my infantry is being supported. So that's the next part about why I think I was successful in this version of the game. So I have information, and I utilize it to slowly, methodically, carefully support my infantry. Now, I say that I'm very slow and careful and methodical with my infantry. You'll notice I am quite a bit more Badum-tish cavalier, wait for it, with my mounted elements. Second and third Dragoon and 1st Cavalry it's our first hussars, are being utilized very aggressively, and those units do take not outsized casualties. None of them takes more than, I think the worst is like 33%. So one unit does walk away from this battle having suffered approximately 30 to 40% casualties, and that is, I want to say, second dragoon. First hussar ends up walking away out of the battle with like 250 out of 600 casualties, so that's also pretty healthy. But third dragoon isn't all that heavily harmed. So anyway, the point is I'm being very cavalier with these lighter armed units, which is to say the skirmishers and the cavalry. And part of that is that I view those units as being, well, the cavalry less so, but the skirmishers, I definitely view them as being kind of expendable. I mean, they're dedicated skirmishers. They are given full unit status and the ability to have perks. But I am being very cavalier in terms of throwing them aggressively into contact so that the initial volleys, especially when I'm crossing a water feature or when I'm crossing into a defended position, they're going into skirmishers. I'm far more willing to take casualties and maybe even outsized casualties in those units than I am line infantry or worse artillery. I also use the hussars. I launch them into Union artillery batteries if I feel like they're exposed, because normally melee into artillery is pretty good, but in the mod, melee into artillery is great. There's somewhere in the patch notes there's this great line. It's like the melee efficacy of fleeing units is, really, really ratcheted downward. And that makes sense in my mind. Like, one of the things I dislike about melee in the vanilla game is even if you're running down a routing unit, you're going to be taking about the same level of casualties as you would be if they were fighting. And it just seems silly to me. So, let's talk about the battle. So I push across with the flanks, and then they kind of launch a counter melee attack, which is great on the right of the Union position. But the attack in the north actually goes really smoothly. The attack in the north goes really smoothly, and the units all flip out and run away. And so I use that as an opportunity to advance with the core of my army, the center. I push my infantry and my artillery up slowly, so incrementally in small amounts. And what happens is really exciting and really fun. It's messy though. And what happens is I trip the flag in that middle near the farmhouse, and I post a unit on it, and they come swarming for me. They keep coming at me again and again and again, and it's like clockwork. I can set a clock to how aggressive they're going to be. They suicidally, I think, launch themselves at this flag, and I'm not going to pretend it doesn't cost me casualties. Absolutely. But what it does also mean is that the overwhelming weight of their numbers are pointed towards this flag. Look at how weakly defended their flanks are. They don't have flanks as far as I'm concerned. They've just got gaping holes that I can pour skirmishers into and all this other stuff. So once I Corps fully crosses the river and gets online, shit falls apart for the Union real fast. It's messy right now, absolutely. This battle is still very much in the balance. But the thing is that this infantry, the attack is scary, but they're charging at point blank Napoleons. I think I've got 2 6-pounder units. I've got 2 or 3 3-inch units, because again, that's just the most common piece of artillery I've captured, so I have to use what I've got, right? I can't afford to use much else. So they're charging into 2 6-pounder units. One of them is like my 2-star artillery unit, all stars, that just murders everything. And 24-pounders and 8-inchers and all that kind of stuff. And I think I've got a James up there or something. And they're just getting blasted to shit and back. But they keep on coming, and it's great. Now, my units also take a beating. And that's the problem with mine being so much smaller than theirs. So the average size of an infantry brigade for the Union going into this battle was low 2400s, low 2300s. Like they're big. 2390 is what I'm seeing right now on some fresh units. Let's just call it 2400 plus or minus 100 or so. And the average size for my unit's 1250. Which one of those units do you think can absorb those casualties better? Right? Like, so I don't have the reserves, the manpower to handle some of these slogging melee fights. But that predictability and the fact that they're condensing so much of their firepower inefficiently like this, because you can only fire with the first units, the front units, which are the ones that I'm blasting with artillery. So they walk up, get blasted to shit and back, fire off a half-hearted, disorganized volley, and then run away. And maybe they get some of these cycle charges off, and that's absolutely a thing. And if that's the case, they run up, and in the interim, they're getting flank fire and blasted and artillery and everything else. And some of these units gets slammed in melee. That sucks. It is what it is. I got to play around that. I've optimized my army for maneuver and fires, and I've more or less ignored shock entirely because I've decided, we're going to be a modern army. So there's definitely a cost to that, and that's when 6,000 Union infantry comes screaming for my 980-man infantry unit. The only option I've got is throw artillery at it and then charge as many units as I possibly can in there and hope the eventually get the first hussars in there, and they absolutely start slaughtering stuff. When the hussars join that battle, they start tearing things apart. But look at them; they're still themselves taking really heavy casualties. They've just taken 30 losses on the way in there. Now they've dealt 10 times that, but they're not walking away unscathed either. So this is a glorious charge of the light cavalry brigade into that attack. And then we have this sort of small skirmish going on in the south with I've got maybe 2-3 units tied up fighting off their force down there, which is 1 or 2 batteries of artillery. And it's one that split, and I know I get them both, but I don't know if I've gotten them both yet. And then 2 brigades who I don't think I get. I think I don't get them over the course of the whole battle. I probably could have written them down, but I was like, we're good. I got them. So at this point now, they're boxed up in that corner there. You can see my army's more or less stable. Absolutely beaten up. Absolutely worse for wear. But I've got reserves. I've got plenty of artillery. I've got good supplies. I'm feeling pretty good. And they're condensed in a very tight area, and I've got an increasing amount of control of the field. And this is the part of, let's get back to that initial point. Why do I think this went better? The first iteration gave up a lot of information. The first iteration, I panicked. I got panicky. Once it became rapidly apparent to me that my plan wasn't going to work, I started casting about. And when you do that, you grab or scrabble at the first viable maneuver, and don't, I think, really have the mental capacity or wherewithal to think about, is this really viable, or does it just look good? And I sat down and I looked at the commentary and from the first Malvern Hill, which was amazing. It was great. That level of feedback for these videos is, I can't tell you how good how much it encourages me to get on this stuff and make good content and really think about these battles. And so I thought about, what I was doing there was functionally fighting 2 completely independent commands against a unified force in the center. And that's a recipe for failure. Now, normally, the concept of an envelopment seems like a good idea, right? But here's the problem. If you have... actually, that's a textbook example of the central lines theorem. You can pull resources freely across from one front to the other, across territory that you safely control, because you control the central lines. And I had two independent commands that if one of them ran into trouble, the other one couldn't support it. Example, I gave a foolish order to my artillery. They got killed as a result. And I found myself now with two corps, unable to effectively attack, unable to prosecute offensive maneuver, which then meant that I Corps with artillery was responsible for shouldering all of the burden of offensive maneuver in the remainder of that battle, which meant inevitably that they suffered heavy casualties on their infantry. And then when I kind of got desperate and tried to find any way to get Second Corps in the battle, they advanced across water and got shot in the river, which is also not good. So what's happening here? Neither side, or both sides, take your pick, has access to interior lines. I have two corps fighting as one big force, together, unified. In fact, their artilleries have been combined into two super batteries, one counter battery unit, one infantry support unit. Or I believe the historical term that would have been used a lot was a grand battery. The other thing is that them working in unison like this gives me reserves that I can float into and out of the battle. So as we continue to advance the battle here, I'm going to retire in this battle some units from the front line fighting because they've taken, in my mind, enough casualties. And so they can relax. They get replaced, rotated out, and a reserve unit advances and takes their place in the line. Because I have two corps of infantry, and my standard corps model right now has, I want to say, 16 brigades of infantry in a corps. It might be 12 still. It's 16, I'm pretty sure. Not positive, but pretty sure. Budget willing. So I think there might actually only end up being like 12 in I Corps, and the remainder is skirmishers to sort of fill out the formation. But on paper, it should be 16. Anyway, what that means is I've got a lot of units, and they can support each other. And in this instance, the Union still has interior lines because I'm wrapping their entire formation. But I also have interior lines because now both commands are contiguous. And if I need to, I can lap things around in the backfield. In fact, I'm doing exactly that. I've got the Hussars, for example. They are completely free to maneuver behind my lines. They're free to do all kinds of stuff back there. I move the supply wagons around. I move Rebel Fiasco around. I move the artillery, which I realize now, in the moment I realized like it's really concentrated in the north near that northern flag. We need to start spreading it out along this line of infantry that's currently the main arm of engagement, kind of up and down this creek, basically. Or take a look right now, with the skirmishers. So I realize they're low on ammo, and so I'm just free to walk them back a little bit, have them run behind my lines back to the supply wagon, and they'll be able to refill on their ammo. And that's what I'm talking about. We both have interior lines. And that's fine. Like, an advantage is less of an advantage if both parties have access to it. So, as a recap, Malvern Hill didn't go well the first time because I forgot my central tenets, my maxims of operational maneuver. I talked about this an awful lot when I first started playing this game. Unfortunately, I've taken that series down. It was my very, very first series, and I think it was Brigadier General in the vanilla game on the Confederate side or something, and I was recording with a shitty mic, and I didn't have any idea what I was doing and all this kind of stuff. But I talked about, I had rules of warfare. I had some rules, and I tried to make every episode like about a rule, and like it was a good idea on paper. But the thing is, I couldn't reliably make each rule like the focus of that episode. I was like, never advance into the wood line without recon, and like I couldn't like make that a focus of the episode, so I didn't whatever. I kind of tried to have a thing like, oh, my maxims of warfare, and each episode would be about a thing. And like that was going to be sort of the hallmark of the channel, was going to be like, oh, Joe teaches actual military theory with the video game to kind of illustrate. Well, okay. We adapt, right? But one of my maxims, one of the things I always talk about is you should never maneuver your force blindly without recon. To advance blindly is to advance into Schrodinger's ambush. At every step, you are both are and are not walking into an ambush, and without recon, you don't know. The cat is both alive and dead until you open the box, right? So it's the same idea. So, the core maxim, recon, I forgot it, and I wasn't enacting it. I didn't think about when I planned the battle, because I was just looking at a top-down map. I was like, well, I can just envelop their position. It'll be great. I didn't think about elevation. I thought two-dimensional. And the second rule of maxim, unsupported infantry is dead infantry. I talked about this a shitload when the channel first started. SC was one of the great guys who commented on those early videos, and he something Compass said, hey, this microphone's good, and this is this post editing sound software is good. Use that. But I pointed out this is the first thing I talked about. Blind infantry is dead infantry, and unsupported infantry is also dead infantry, and so that was the second maxim that my original plan for Malvern Hill ignored. Is I had infantry that had some support, but it wasn't supported by another unit. And then the last thing is, if when possible, this great image, and I've never been able to come up with a better image of the power of force than Game of Thrones does this thing in the very first season. Bob Baratheon is talking to Ned Stark, and he's saying something like, how many great kingdoms are there? And he holds up his fingers, and he's talking about those five great kingdoms or whatever, and he slaps Rob, or not Rob, Ned, and he's talking about what do you think happens when they work together? And he makes a fist out of the whole thing, and he hits him, and it's just this amazing, it's this fantastic visual. TV. I love TV, because they give this stuff a great image and that kind of deal. But very often, the metrics of what you can fit on a screen and what looks good in a film and what audiences even give a fuck to learn and that kind of stuff. You can't show a battle the way that it should actually be shown on television. Even like Sharp's Rifles, like the series, which is my favorite. I love those books. The TV series, they do good. They do okay, but it's you can't show traditional Napoleonic maneuver in warfare on television. People will fall asleep when your main character has to take 20 seconds to round his pistol or reload his rifle or something. It's not good television, and I understand that and I respect it, whatever. Films do often a terrible job of, in my opinion, explaining any of the real nuances that go into, military maneuver, operational art, all that kind of thing. And the first season in particular did this incredible job of explaining it doesn't matter if you've got 1,000 soldiers or 10,000 soldiers or whatever. If they're not working together, they may as well be, empty fingers on a glove for all the impact they're going to have. So, briefly back to the battle, the Union Army is continuously being forced to give ground. I have all three flags. I love about the rebalance mod that you don't have to worry so much about, do I or don't I trip the flag? It'll end the battle early, blah, 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 blah. In the rebal, if you trip the flag, good for you. It seems like, for the most part, they're going to, I don't know if this is a rebel thing or what, but it seems like for the most part, they're going to let you fight it out. So I'm advancing the northern arm to sort of I've got these units that are arrayed kind of in north-south along, they're not really on a unifying feature, but the natural terrain, it's starting to sort of, I have the elevated high ground and the Union doesn't, so I'm trying to utilize that. So they're staying up there, and they're the spine or the the foundation of my attack. And the weight, again, this is basically just Battle Drill 1 Alpha here. The weight of the Union attack or Confederate attack is coming from the north, moving south like a Xerox, just sweeping across my base of fire here. And I'm moving the artillery to support, but the artillery is now having a hard time keeping up, which is a good problem to have, I suppose. Where was I going with this? I was talking about a thing. I was doing a thing. No, yeah. So we're in closing stages here. Okay. This is what I was talking about. So what's happening is that as the usable or efficient or meaningful battle space continues to get smaller and smaller and smaller, I pull units out of the line, and it's the smaller ones, the ones that are more beat up, that kind of deal. I pull units out of the line, and now what I've got these guys doing in the backfield, all these back units, is I'm having them run around. I'm giving them random move orders, just having them walk all over the place, because I've got to build up the stamina of my army. I'm not doing a good job in this campaign of keeping everybody moving and making sure everyone's stamina bar is pretty full, or sorry, not full, but they're leveling up the stamina stat, because that's free experience points, right? Like, if just these units that would be spending this battle just standing around, if I give them move orders, it's free XP. They're not doing anything. I've already won the battle as far as I'm concerned. So let's give them move orders. Let's work that stamina bar up and get them some experience. Try and see if we can't get that second star. So we're doing that. So yeah, recon, good lines of fire, good lines of sight, support, infantry support artillery, counter battery support artillery, and the other supporting arms, snipers, rangers, the cavalry, all that kind of shit. All of those things, they're not going to win the battle for you by themselves. Our artillery and cavalry and rangers aren't going to win the battle for you alone. But all of them are force multipliers. And I talked about this a little bit in the where I first tripped on this as a concept that I wanted to think about as a theory was the Union Major General Campaign at Second Bull Run. I talked about it at great length, I think, in that video, how the support arms themselves don't actually win the battle. The infantry still wins the battle, but the support arms make the infantry more... I don't know if they really make the infantry more efficient. I think they just act almost like force protection. Like without them, you can still win the battle with just raw infantry. You can go all, rah, motherland, and win, but it's going to be so messy. Why? Why would you do that when with a little bit of artillery and some patience, you can accomplish, a better outcome, basically. So, yeah, I don't know. I think that's kind of where I come down as far as that stuff's concerned. Is support is more important than I initially gave it credit for. So, yeah. There are some things I did quite wrong in the first Malvern Hill. There's some stuff that's conceptually kind of an okay idea, that I think that there's some potential there to be reworked into a better plan. But the attack from the north more or less worked here. Casualties are pretty light, although they're heavy in some places. I think we do end up losing a skirmisher unit. I think I've already lost it, and I just don't remember. I didn't see it on the screen. It's one of the Rangers. It's not a big deal. But we come in with all the artilleries. We got a bunch of stars. We get a bunch of promotions. We got, I think, 1 or 2 deceased and a whole bunch wounded, but enough promotions elsewhere that I'm okay with it. And a bunch of other guys came off the bench from Gaines Mill, so it's kind of a wash as far as that's concerned. And I just think that that's going to be the way it is in this mod, is I'm just going to have this constant rotation of guys coming off the bench and that kind of shit. So, I mean, it is what it is. It's just kind of, I'll have to manage. We've got them sort of bottled up now. It's sort of a turkey shoot. So I've stopped my army. Notice here, they're at this very top of this elevated position, and I don't think I mouse over it too much, but I think the ground that the Union Army is in right now is marshy, and so it takes them more energy to walk out of that space, and they're going to be more tired. And there's just a lot of good reasons why I want to let them just stay there and let my guys just, turkey shoot, basically. I've got an ad hoc division that's crossed the river and is now moving down the left of the screen. I've had them advancing along the roads because the ground is also marshy over here. But they're just making sure that the Union Army doesn't escape. They can't cross the river. I think I do actually have them come across the river again eventually. But their objective right now, and notice these are all smaller units, so these are ones that have been beaten up, but have pretty good kill ratios. Their objective in this fight is to just keep the back door closed. And that's basically it, is just make sure that there's no opportunity for escape, so to speak. And blam, blam, blam. Just, keep blasting the crap out of the Union, forcing them into, a no-win positioning kind of situation. And that all mostly works out. I keep my guys on top of this ridge line. I don't see anything profitable in coming down from that position, and then we just gun them down. And then I've got my dudes all running around in their little field maneuvers trying to rank up and all that kind of shit. Let's go ahead and wrap up. So there's a couple things I learned from the Gainesville Malvern Hill campaign, and one of them is that you will never ever be well served by moving about willy-nilly. You have got to be very considered in your maneuvers. You've got to think things out. You've got to go slow. And paradoxically, slow is fast. Not because you're actually moving quickly, because you're not. But when you do what I did in the first version of Malvern Hill, I had a lot of stopping and starting, and then stopping, realigning things, and then starting all over again. And in the end result, that ends up being slower than if I'd just taken a little bit longer, figured out what I wanted to do, and then kind of move forward with that plan. So you've got to be very considered and slow. The second thing is you need to babysit your artillery. And I think I knew that, obviously, but I don't know if I kind of really truly appreciated it. And the third thing is how great my viewers are. That sounds a little pandery and kind of like, okay, well, he has to say that. But I mean, like, it's one thing if I get viewers who are kind of like, just, hey, good job or whatever, good to see the Confederates playing, or go back to playing the Union, or play a different game or whatever. I like those comments because it gives me an idea from the perspective of the channel how I should be doing things, or like, maybe people are tired of seeing this kind of content, or they want to move to a different game or something. And I do plan on talking about Ultimate Admiral and all that kind of stuff at some point when it comes closer to release. But what I get in this channel is really active engagement from, the developers of this mod, and other content creators who are like, hey, here's the game, and let's talk about your play, and here's some notes about how you can play better, and all that. So anyway, I did some day of recording too, and we're going to go ahead and jump to that. So for the time being, thanks again for all the amazing commentary, and I appreciate all you guys so much. But we're going to jump into the day of, and then until then, I will see you guys next week when we finally advance beyond Malvern Hill. This is Fiasco signing out for now. Go back to day of recording. I guess let's start day of recording, because I don't have the numbers in front of me for what I did, but they were not nearly this good, and I didn't lose. I think I lost one unit as a skirmishers somewhere in there, but those are largely kind of throwaway units anyway, so I'm less worried about that. Look at that 5th Artillery. They did great. The losses were, as usual, kind of uneven, but I'm actually okay with the general gist of it. Let's take a look at how the Confederacy did generally. So some of the 24th, the 2 green units. It's unfortunate they were kind of intended. That's what they were built for. Notice that the majority of the casualties are in the infantry or the militia. And right, wrong, or indifferent, that's kind of the intention. I'm okay with them being in these units that they're supposed to fight. They're supposed to fight. They're supposed to take losses. I obviously don't want to take lots of losses. Like, this is far, far more than I want. I bet that these are probably the guys who were kind of holding that farmhouse that got charged a couple times. But that was interesting. So the general gist of what I was trying to accomplish, and I'm sure I talk about this during the recording, is I wanted to have the 2 corps fighting together this time versus the initial plan of trying to have them sandwich the Union in the middle there. I wanted the 2 corps fighting together, and then kind of just, if they wanted to, I was sure that the Union would try and take that northern flag. I presume it's North Malvern Hill, I'm guessing. They would presumably try and take that again and again and again, and I'd be able to just get the raking fire, especially if once I got the artillery into position. And it was messy. It was messy in the open field fight, but it was messy last time too. So I was expecting a degree of messy, and here I was able to get the snipers really, I was really able to get the snipers where I wanted them to be, working as counter battery. And that little copse up here ended up going great. So all told, I'm much, much happier with this run through here. I hope that I go through during the episode and do some of the commentary that, respond to the comments and the questions and everything that came from Malvern Hill Mark 1. So if I don't, I'm sure I will, but if I don't, thank you so much, Panda Kraut, for just that. Those very detailed responses. Let's take a look at the officers. So we got promotion from captain straight to light colonel. So I bet Gates here is pretty pissed. Light colonel to colonel, light colonel to colonel. All right. Colonel wounded, not that bad. It's okay. Alfred Gregg to colonel. Cool. Toon wounded. That's unfortunate. Bristow picks up his 3rd star. Cook picks up his 2nd. Good job. Allen wounded. So all wounded so far. That's not that bad. Promotion. This is all good. Yep. All right, cool. And Fiasco again picks up his major general in this version of the battle. So I think this part of it actually went better too. And that's probably just a factor of the fight going generally better. It's a shame that Archer got wounded. He was one of my better leveled up or better equipped, experienced, I guess you could say, commanders. I'm pretty sure Archer was a division commander. So that's shitty that he got wounded. The rest of these guys are all unit commanders, and it's fine. I'll live. So, Archer's going to be a setback, but he's wounded. He'll be back. Trebu dying is definitely not ideal, but all told, I mean, considering what happened in the original version of this battle, losing one officer dead and the rest wounded, and then a whole shitload of promotions is probably okay. Let's take a look at what we captured. We got a whole new unit, basically, of 10-pound 3-inch ordnance, whatever. A whole new unit of 10-pound parrots. That's excellent. I wasn't terribly impressed with the sharps in that 1 dragoon unit. I was, however, impressed with the Cook musket, wherever that is. So that's good to know. Lots of 1861s. That'll be probably 2 brigades or 3 brigades that get upgraded, which is great, plus whatever I can buy. Let's take a look at what else we got going on. So some of this stuff is all good. I'm not going to complain about any of these weapons. Rescued. Let's take a look at captures. So I did end up using a lot of the supplies that I captured, and it's fine, whatever. The Napoleons I'm looking at replacing as soon as I can. They're fine, but they're okay. They're not great. Colt RR. What is this? Revolving, I'm guessing? Revolving rifle. Interesting. Probably one of their supply units or cav units. Yeah, so the Cookin brother, I'm really impressed with that unit. Now, admittedly, it's a 3-star unit, so okay, fine. But it seems to outrange, I guess, no, they have the same range. I don't know. It seems to outperform the Sharp. It's probably the unit carrying it, not the gun itself, but we'll see. yeah, I'm pretty excited about this, and I'm pretty excited that we didn't lose 2 whole units of artillery. So that's a thing. The army should be much easier to reassemble from this point. So we pick up James Longstreet. So losing Archer or losing Trabue ends up not being that big a deal, which is great. Enough captures barely for the 1,000 recruits exactly, which probably came from the supply wagons, I'm guessing. Career points, reputation points, money, dudes. That's all good. Yeah, so I did lose a skirmisher unit, and the army is in much better shape. I'm sure you guys caught me doing that, like sending everybody on a ruck march towards the tail end of that battle. Look at all these units that leveled up. That's great. Excellent. Did my sniper unit pick up their second star? They did not. You know, it's interesting. In the other playthrough, they actually had more experience towards the tail end of things. Just for shits, let's see what happens if I stick Longstreet in there. Yeah, they pick up their second star. Cool. Accuracy, reload, cover. Accuracy, spotting, and stealth. I gotta go with that. Yeah, that said, I'm not gonna stick Longstreet in that unit. So yeah, Bede is probably as good as Longstreet, so that's cool. Oh look, perfect. There you go, boom. And I'm sure I've got good colonels that could get, yeah, Ewell here. He can get promoted over into the sniper corps. All right, so Imbledon replaces Ewell. Ewell, where are you? Ewell replaces Butler, and boom. 2-star unit. That's great. So these guys are murder machines, and they're just going to keep on being murder machines. Let's see if I can't get away with a couple of recruits. Raw rookies. I lose some stats, but I don't lose the perk. These aren't that big a deal. So this is the soft cap for a small unit. Or is it 375? I forget. Whatever. 275 is fine. Cost me nothing because I've already got the guns. Admittedly picked up from dead bodies, but hey, don't complain. And we do lose some stats, but it's not that big a deal. I actually want to lose stats because especially firearms is so easy to level, relatively speaking, and I really shouldn't ever be leveling the melee stats. So in order to get this unit up to like its next star, I really got to do it predominantly in re-leveling firearms and stamina. So I don't know. We'll see. 20th Sniper picks up their second star, which is great. 3rd Infantry did it again. They did it in the first battle, but this time they lost like 9 guys. So let's go ahead and make sure they can get those 9 guys and not. Yep, that's fine. All right. So we've given you down the accuracy tree. I think we decided we're going to go down the accuracy tree again. Yeah, Master Marksman. Just we gotta. And the Springfield 61 appears to be a pretty decent musket for the purposes of shooting. It's got a pretty decent damage curve. I like that. It's narrow, which is good. And it doesn't seem like it drops off a whole lot as it goes on. Now, it does definitely drop off. From 73 to 42 is pretty significant, but it's not that bad. It's not that bad compared to some of the other guns that are out there. So, yeah, sweet. So one thing that I definitely think I'm going to be taking a look at doing a bit differently is I have been building my stat allocation like the vanilla version of the game, which is to say lots of economy, lots of training. And I think that Panda's mentioned that people are going all in on logistics and recon and turning their armies into basically long-range artillery machines. Somewhere Panda, I'm sure, told me that recon, I mentioned in the last video, is 20 points of spotting per perk, and he corrected me in the comments. It's 50 points of spotting per perk. So yeah, that's nuts. That's amazing. And that kind of ability to see things with your artillery would be unbeatable, So The recon's probably okay where it is. Mostly I'm using captured shit and rep guns anyway, so econ we can leave where it is. Training and medicine we'll leave where it is. We'll go ahead and um, bump each logistics and recon. Maybe no. Maybe we just bump recon, enemy info standard. I've never gone above 4 recon before, so I don't really know what that means. We'll find out. But the Union not being able to see me coming, or rather me always being able to see the Union coming, is attractive. And I don't, having all these guns, having more guns in the shop, absent the discount that comes with a higher economy, won't really do me much good at the moment. I can barely afford to buy a lot anyway. So I think keeping what I've got, this is good. Keeping recon up is going to, I think, be a force reduction or a force protection measure, as well as some juncture medicine. But I just need to work on, having enough of this stuff first, econ and logistics and everything else. So we'll do that, and we'll see what that gets me. How are we doing on officers? So we got a bunch of these guys wounded. Yeah, Archer is one of my better level, but he gets replaced by the other guy, so it's fine. And then we can buy, I would not, look at my bank. I'm hesitant to buy really anything bigger than a light colonel. And even then, I think probably just buy majors and level them up. How are we doing on guns? Scoped Whitworths. Yeah, we got some of those, so I'm probably going to buy, never mind. I don't know. I feel like it's worth it. They've proven to be reliable. I might have enough to finally put together a 20-pound Parrot unit. Yeah, barely. So there's that. That discount really couldn't come. It's got to come, and I need it now. So you're unperked, and I think we know 11. I don't have 11. Yeah, Parrots. I could buy one. I don't want to. So there's that, I suppose. You're also perked for long range, right? So maybe oh no, I like the Jameses too. What do I have in the perk store? Jameses. Oh, well, that works out pretty well. Whitworth's unscoped, interesting. Enfield's is very good. The Blakely. Have I taken the Blakely on the field? Do I have a Blakely? No, these are all terribly named. The Hussars did well for themselves. Do I have enough Cookin' Brothers to give you $5,000? Why do I like the Cookin' Brothers so much? 88%, that's why. Yep, there you go. Have fun with that. Let me know how that works out for you. Yeah, that's right. We picked up our perk. So we got speed. What's round 2? More speed. Okay. Gotta go fast. Charge, melee, sure. Oh, that's right. Guns. Yeah, we went down the guns path. Accuracy. Lots of accuracy. Speed and cover. Really? Probably lots of accuracy. Yeah? Speed's good too, though. But they're already pretty fast. Yeah, fuck it. Speed or accuracy, And then this one, 11 guns. I want to ultimately replace these, but I'm pretty sure I can't. I don't think I have anything else to replace them with, except for more of those. And well, wait a second, 26 to 48. Okay, yeah, no, never mind. It's got a narrower and higher damage curve, and also 200 more pips of range. Okay, that's fine. So we're gonna spec it for long range. Panda tells me I'm underestimating the value of this perk, and I'm inclined to believe he's probably right. The dude wrote the game, or this version of the game, and Johnny. So I have to imagine he knows what's up. Yeah, accuracy is a good perk. So let's do it. Yeah, man, I tell you, I wish I had one more 10-pounder. I don't really want. Oh, it's $1,300. Sure. Accuracy, shot, shell damage. Boom. 7th Artillery. Parrots. I don't know. I'm still figuring out how I want to name this shit. Yeah, I'll do that off camera, obviously. Fill you up. You only took 6 losses somehow. Oh, you probably lost a gun too, I'm imagining, because I think you had 12 going into this. I think I would like to up the James as well. Anyway. Oh, we lost a division commander, eh? Yep. Alright. Boop. So all these militia units are no longer militia, obviously, because they've picked up the thing. Accuracy. Yeah. Are you guys sensing a theme? Oh, another parrot unit. Excellent. Guess what you're getting? Long range. Heyo. Infantry. Green. Not so green anymore, eh, folks? Nice. So yeah, the army's looking quite a bit less beat up than it was at the end of the first attempt at Malvern Hill. Though we'll go ahead and can I afford veterans? What is that? 18,000. Yeah, I can afford that. I need them. I need the snipers. Oh, do I need the Enfields or do I need? The James continues to impress. 6. I've got. Let's get one of each. 900. Fire rate 60. 32 to 48. 9%. Ooh, whoa, nearly double accuracy, or it's a smaller damage multiplier, whatever. You get what I'm saying. It's a narrower range. Starts higher but ends lower, so that actually works out well for the James. And it's got the same accuracy, or the same distance. Yeah, I mean, whatever. I've already... turns out I've got a Blakely unit as well. How did you do? Not bad. Actually, pretty good. 1,000 kills. I mean, everyone got a lot of kills that battle, which is good. Not bad. How'd the James do? Not nearly as well. Well, and in fairness, you've only fought in the 2 battles. I think ultimately I'm going to want both, then, it sounds like. Cannon of 4 design. The gun is expensive, or effective but expensive. Yeah, that seems reasonable. For the meantime, let's go ahead and get the Enfields. Yeah. And then the Jameses. We know we like Jameses. And then I'll have a couple of side battles to go and pick up the Blakeleys too. And then bingo bango, Bob's your uncle. Still got $113,000 to spend. Let's get you at least a 30. $108,000 to spend. Morale 0 effect. That's good. We like that. Blah, 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 blah. Doesn't mean anything. Oh, recruits again. Excellent. Good. Yank that training value down. Woo. Leading towards Bull Run. 9th of August, Cedar Mountain. Yeah, that's right. This is the, we attack this. I don't remember this battle. Looks interesting. Looks fun. So are they up here? Oh, you know what? I do remember this battle. Yeah. Okay. I think we ended up kind of, well, this isn't the vanilla game, so take all this with a grain of salt. But we ended up kind of posting up here, and then kind of using artillery and firing obliquely. And then I had a force come up, and this is up right up against the edge of the map, and post up in these houses, and eventually kind of drop down on them from that way, because This is you got to attack uphill over a creek. That's not a viable attack position. I would imagine there is some cachet to an attack plan that involves coming over this direction instead. Clearly, attacking frontally is a mistake. And the reason that I did this versus this is that this way you're attacking downhill, and you have this position right here that can fire directly into their position, and you can get you can cross their T, to borrow a naval term, and then attack from a somewhat covered. This is urban, and you barely have any access to this terrain up here, so you do have some, but not nearly enough. So I don't know. Yeah, we'll see. I have 16 units. Yeah, I don't know. We'll figure it out. But yeah, hey guys, thanks for sticking this out. I know I don't usually do like the whole let's re-rack and try it again. But I was coming fresh off of finals, and I think Panda's been Panda made some points that there were some moments of of just rough play, unclean. I just wasn't on my game. So yeah, that's the value of having saves to go back and do over again. I think we ended up being like 5,000 casualties less, and of course we're 2 units up from where we were. So there's that too. I don't know when or if I'm ever going to have the opportunity to spin up a 3rd corps. It'll have to wait until I get a free general, I think. So we'll see. Anywho, until the next time, I will do Cedar Mountain. And what's Manassas Depot look like? Oh, I remember this one. Yeah, sure. Nope, never mind. I don't remember this one at all. Oh, yeah, this is Distress Call, but from the Confederate side. What's crappy about this is that you don't have your own units to fight with it. So, yeah, you lead General Trimble's brigade. Why isn't General Trimble leading General Trimble's brigade? One wonders. His regiments have taken up position in the woods and are ready to da-da-da-da-da. Okay, sure. So, yeah, we'll do that. Leading up to Second Bull Run, we'll use all the rep to buy probably these Blakeleys. That reminds me. So let me see. Is it better? I still keep the perk. We lose 10 firepower. Or no, we lose 14 firearms. $10,000 for a bunch of stats that I can level up. Wait, how do we gain melee? How does that work? If we're veteran, we lose melee. If we use, how do we gain? Oh, you know what? I know how it is. Because of the training. Yep, that's what it is, right? Training. The raw recruits have this skill, but the vets don't, because this is probably hard-coded. Well, no, it wouldn't be. Because the veteran just maintains whatever stats it currently has. Interesting. Anyway, I'm going to go up to that. I'm going to use rookies to do it. I can level this stat again. It's not hard at all to level this stat. We still keep the perk, which is the thing I really only care, which is really the thing I care about. And now I've got a big-ass James unit, which is fantastic. And can I get away with a big light colonel? I can. So we're going to do that. All right, cool. That's awesome. Makes me happy. Big unit. And, 12 guns is about as big as I'm going to want to go in the rebalance mod, unless I ever get word that the other damage curves have been brought into the equation, but I don't think that's the case yet. Anywho, yeah, sorry, I'm rambling. Ladies and gents, thanks for sticking around, and I will see you in the next one. This is Fiasco saying have a wonderful weekend, and I'm signing out.